I wanted to ask you what that says about press freedom in India when someone...
I mean, this is a question you should ask Mr. Modi. So, more apt.
Okay.
I don't know how you'll get there.
As soon as we get him here.
I don't know how you'll get there, but yeah. They're not inclusive. They don't embrace everybody, and they divide society. And that's damaging, in my view, to India. Look at the Karnataka election and wait and watch the next 3 or 4 state elections. That, I think, is a better indicator of what's going to happen.
How united is the opposition in India, and why isn't Congress supporting Kejriwal on the ordinance issue?
No, that's an internal discussion we are having. We got the message out with the Yatra in an explosive way. Some days back, I was somewhere and I had one of the spokesmen of the BJP who just bumped into me, and she said that this was a very powerful thing that you did. I'm the first person in India to be given the highest punishment for a defamation case. It's the first case. I'm the first person in Indian history. But you know, my disqualification is not really, it's okay. It opens up completely new spaces for me. It allows me to completely redefine myself. And I think they've given me a gift.
Since Mr. Modi has come to power, India's economy has improved, according to independent economic assessments. What's your take on the current government's economic policies? Have they improved the country's position?
I mean, what we see on the ground is massive unemployment and dramatic increase in prices. And this is one of the reasons we won the Karnataka election, was that there was a feeling in India that there is a set of people who have a huge amount of wealth, and then there's a large mass of Indian people who are poor and struggling. Huge income disparities and unemployment. I think it's a 40-year high for unemployment. So to say that the economy is doing well, I don't quite agree with it.
And are there particular policies that are cause for concern or that should be changed?
I think the central difference between how we see it and how the BJP sees it is we believe in decentralization of power. We believe in supporting the small and medium industries, and we believe that they are the engine of growth in India. And they tend to concentrate power and wealth in few limited people. So that's, I would say, broadly, that's the difference in the economic perspective.
Okay. If your party were to return to power, what changes would it seek to implement to ensure the rights of minorities in India?
I mean, India has a very robust system already in place. That system has been weakened, right? But it's not that that system doesn't exist. If the conversation, the democratic conversation is allowed to be fostered, then these issues will settle themselves.
So the rule of law is in place. It just perhaps isn't followed.
No, it's not. You have to have an independent set of institutions that are not pressurized and controlled, and that's been the norm in India. This is an aberration. What is taking place in India. So from our perspective, the foundations of democracy in India are very strong. And the protections exist, but they're being sort of disturbed.
And you see that if Congress came to power, they could quickly be restored.
I mean, quickly, I don't know, but the Congress party is the institution that conceptualized them in the first place, right? So we don't view them as our institutions. We view them as institutions of the state. And so we ensured that there was independence and neutrality in these institutions. And it's not difficult to do if that's what you're trying to do.
Let me ask you about, well, again, welcome to the Press Club, and let me ask you about press freedom, very important issue for us all. I should, full disclosure, My colleague, Vivek Raghuvanshi, was arrested several weeks ago and charged with, and accused of espionage. He's an Indian citizen. And what does that, he's been working for my company for more than 30 years and as a journalist. And I wanted to ask you what that says about the state of press freedom in India when someone, can be just accused of, even after, if it was someone with such a reputation, can be accused in such a cavalier manner.
No, I think the fact that there is a weakening of press freedoms, this is not hidden. I mean, everybody knows it. It's apparent in India. The rest of the world can see it. And I think press freedom is very, very critical for a democracy. I mean, one should be open to criticism, and one should listen to criticism. I mean, that's the feedback loop that builds democracies. And definitely, there is a weakening of press freedom. I mean, and it's not just press freedom. It's on multiple axes. On multiple axes, there is a clampdown on the institutional framework that allowed India to talk, that allowed the Indian people to negotiate. I view India as a negotiation between its people, between different languages, different cultures, different histories. Mm-hmm. And the architecture that Mahatma Gandhi set up was to allow that negotiation to be carried out fairly and freely. And that structure that allows the negotiation between India's people is coming under pressure. I mean, this is a question you should ask Mr. Modi. So more apt.
Okay.
I don't know how you'll get there.
As soon as we get him here.
I don't know how you'll get there, but yeah, I think it would be better question directed at him.
Okay. What are your concerns with regard to the use of the citizenship law to expel Muslim Indians who have lived in India for generations? How would you handle things differently?
I think all Indian people, right, have a right to expression. All Indian people have a right to religious freedom. All Indian communities should feel free to express themselves. So I don't differentiate between any community, any caste. I think India, as I mentioned just now, is a conversation, and the freer and more open that conversation, the more powerful India becomes.
You have said that Modi's BJP engages in the politics of hatred and violence. Can you explain what you mean by this?
It's explained in the sentence, right? They sort of generate a certain amount of hatred in society. They polarize society, and they're not inclusive. They don't embrace everybody, and they divide society. That's yeah, and that's damaging in my view to India, because India has always had a tradition of conversation, of openness. All our great leaders, spiritual, political, Mahatma Gandhi, Buddha, all of them promoted harmony, promoted peace, promoted conversation. So it's in our culture, it's in our history to sort of bring people together and have these dialogues. So that's I think it's a difference in ideology between us and the BJP. Mm-hmm. We feel India should be allowed to express itself, and we feel that political leaders should be comfortable in sort of being questioned and should learn from that questioning. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, it's just a difference in viewpoint.
For such a divisive figure, Modi maintains very high levels, in fact, worldwide high levels of popularity. Why do you think that's the case? Why do so many Indians support the Modi government?
I mean, there is a definite capture of the institutions of the country. There's a definite capture of the press in the country. I'm not convinced that I don't believe everything I hear. I walked across India walked from Kanyakumari to Kashmir and talked directly to millions of Indian people, and they didn't seem very happy to me. And they were very clear that there were serious issues with regards to unemployment. There was massive price rise. So there was an angst in the people. Now, and look at the Karnataka election, and wait and watch the next 3 or 4 state elections. That I think is a better indicator of what's going to happen.
It says you talked about secularism and democracy while opposing the Hindu party BJP. However, Congress in Kerala has been in alliance with the Muslim party, Muslim League in Kerala, the state from which you were MP for more than, the state you are the MP for more than 70 years.
Muslim League is a completely secular party.
Right.
There's nothing non-secular about the Muslim League.
Questions are a little disjointed. Sorry about that.
I think the person hasn't studied the Muslim League.
Back to politics. How united is the opposition in India, and why isn't Congress supporting Kejriwal on the ordinance issue?
Well, that's an internal discussion we are having. The opposition is pretty well united, and I think it's getting more and more united. We are having conversations with all the opposition, and I think quite a lot of good work is happening there.
Okay.
Yeah. It's a complicated discussion because there are spaces where we are competing also with the opposition. So it's a little bit of give and take is required, but I'm confident that will happen.
This is a question from the audience. India started as a secular state, but is currently leaning toward a Hindu state. Is that a threat to democracy? Is India losing its original ideology from your perspective?
I think there's a fight on in India. There are 2 visions of India. There is the vision that the BJP has. It's a centralizing vision. It's a polarizing vision. And then there's another vision, equally strong. In fact, if you ask me, much stronger, but not expressing itself that effectively right now, which is a decentralized view, an embracing vision, a sensitive, compassionate vision. And I'm absolutely convinced that this is a transitional phase, and the true nature of India, the true democratic nature of India, compassionate nature of India will triumph. I have no doubt in my mind. And by the way, we've gone through this phase before. So it's not that it's a new thing. The Congress party faced this exact same thing in the 30s, and we decimated it. And we will do the same again. People are impatient, People are like very impatient. BJP has been in power for 10 years. Well, okay, we were in power for 10 years before that. Why did nobody say, in UPA 2, when we had been in power for 8 years, why did nobody say, oh my God, the BJP is going to evaporate? After all, the same, we were in power for 10 years. So there is a tendency for the media to sort of exaggerate these things. There are reasons for it also. But we are committed to the democratization of India. And we are committed especially to the emancipation of the poor people of India, the lower castes, backward castes.
It says, this is a question from the audience. In 9 years of BJP rule, India has become, as a 3.5 trillion rupee or dollar economy. India is one of the most, and yet India is one of the most impoverished countries. So how do you see India addressing its many problems? Given the challenges of democracy, given the challenges of the divisive rule of what's the way forward in terms of specifically addressing poverty?
The 3.5 trillion, India has a particular growth rate. So that's just a natural consequence of that growth rate. The question is, how is the wealth of India distributed? Is India creating jobs? Are Indian people feeling that they can express themselves? Are they happy? Is there general tranquility in the country? Congress party has a record for doing this. We've done it for many, many years. I think a good model is to let the people of India get to work, let them do what they're best at doing, and not to sort of, pressurize them and threaten them and do that. There's a historical record for this. I mean, after all, India did extremely well in the early 2000s.
What do you see as the main drivers of...
There's a cost.
Sorry.
You see, there's also something that people don't realize is that there's a massive economic cost to this disharmony, right? To this non-conversation. That filters out, right? So saying that Indian economy is doing well, that doesn't take in the full picture. What are the other costs that you're creating? Those are not being factored in, right? We had better economic growth than the BJP, created more jobs than the BJP, and had complete harmony in the country.
What do you see as the biggest drivers of the economy in the short term, in the years ahead, in the coming years?
I think what the BJP's policies have done, particularly demonetization and what we consider to be a flawed GST, they have weakened the small and medium businesses in India. And we believe that the small and medium businesses are actually the backbone of economic activity in India. If you want to create jobs, if you want to have a 21st century economy, you have to empower these people and turn them from being small and medium businesses to large businesses. So in our mind, it's taking these businesses and scaling them up and having hundreds, if not thousands of these businesses become large businesses. So that's where we fundamentally differ with the BJP. They believe that you don't need these small and medium businesses, that you can build the Indian economy with 3 or 4 huge, massive businesses. Unfortunately, having 3 or 4 massive businesses doesn't translate into jobs. It can't. So that's really at the heart of the difference between the two visions. And you can see it. So, I mean, the growth during the UPA period was much better than the growth now. And there's massive levels of unemployment in India now. And it's a real problem because our people, they need to be put into productive activity. It's a huge waste of the most valuable resource on the planet.
If you believe the BJP pushes hard propaganda, how do you tackle the government messaging heading into 2024?
Well, we had been struggling with this for some time, and we came across this very simple idea, which was to walk from Kanyakumari to Kashmir, and it was shocking at how effective that idea was. I was just frankly blown away, because when we went directly to the people, no amount of force worked. I mean, the BJP was trying everything they could to not allow the yatra to be successful. It didn't work. So it was very interesting. I think all this propaganda doesn't work if you go close to the people. If you're far from the people, it's very easy. But once you start going close to the people and you start having conversations, you start walking on the streets, you start physically meeting people, it doesn't work. It's quite a revelation to me. And I think it sort of made me understand what Mahatma Gandhi was doing with, the Champaran movement or the Dandi March. I think, as I was saying in Stanford yesterday, in the West and in India, there is a distance between the people and the political class. And I think that's where the propaganda comes into play. If you bridge that gap, it's very difficult.
But can you get your message out with the media?
We got the message out with the yatra in an explosive way. I mean, fantastic.
So the people of India are hearing your message?
Loud and clear.
Yes.
And I mean, it's obvious. It's obvious to every single person in India that the yatra, the message of the yatra, India needs to stand united, India needs to work together, resonated with BJP people. Some days back, I was somewhere and I had one of the spokesmen of the BJP who just bumped into me, and she said that this was a very powerful thing that you did.
So is the way you were disqualified from parliament and what is happening in Pakistan, do you see any similarities here, and what does that say about politics in the region?
I don't know. I mean, look, as you said, I asked a rhetorical question. I asked the question, why, well, you described it.
Right.
I'm fighting a court case, so I have to be careful. But I asked a rhetorical question. And I'm the first person in India to be given the highest punishment for a defamation case. It's the first case, I'm the first person in Indian history since 1947, right? Nobody has been given the maximum sentence on defamation, and that too on the first offense, right? So that should explain what's going on to you. Mm-hmm. And my disqualification happens quite interestingly after I make a speech about Mr. Adani in Parliament. So you can do the math.
Mm-hmm. Let's see.
But you know, my disqualification is not really, it's okay, it's not the most important thing. The most important thing is the thousands and thousands of other voices, civil society, government, bureaucracy, who are being frightened into submission. That's much more important to me than my disqualification. Mm-hmm. My disqualification in many ways is an advantage for me.
How so?
Because it opens up completely new spaces for me. You know, it allows me to completely redefine myself. And I think they've given me a gift, frankly. They don't think they realize it, but they have. Politics is not linear. You know, it's like, it can suddenly go off into another direction. It's asymmetric. So I think they've given me a gift. It's not apparent right now, but I think they have.
I want to thank you for joining us today at the club, and thank you for answering so many questions.
Are you inviting the Prime Minister?
Perhaps absolutely, we'll invite for his turn.
I look forward to hearing it.
I also wanted to thank Bill McCarran, Cecily Scott Martin, and Poonam Sharma for their role in bringing this together, and in the perhaps your members of your family have received this in the past, but as a thank you, this is our press club mug, of highly coveted. Perhaps
nice.
It can go on the mantle.
You know, I was actually looking for a coffee mug.
Okay. Excellent.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you.
Minnambalam.com தமிழின் முதல் மொபைல் பத்திரிகை.